The sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the civil registry office, bathing the rows of chairs, occupied by men in suits and women in party dresses, in a golden glow. The air was heavy with expensive perfumes and the hushed murmur of those awaiting a solemn moment. Marina Scott gripped the cleaning cloth so tightly that her knuckles were white. She stood there, in the corner of the room, invisible as always, but this time her heart pounded so fiercely it seemed to echo off the walls of the chamber. The moment was approaching. Roderick Ashton, the man she had served for almost a decade, was about to sign the papers that would unite him forever with Valentina Miller. Marina watched the bride, impeccable in her French lace gown, smiling for the photographers while holding the groom's arm. Everything seemed too perfect, dangerously perfect. Marina took a deep breath. Her hands trembled as she dropped the cloth onto an empty chair and began to walk down the central aisle. Each step felt like it weighed a ton. People started to turn, frowning as they saw the housekeeper advancing towards the main table, where the registry officer was already preparing the final documents. "I need to speak," Marina said, and her voice came out firmer than she expected. "I need to speak now, before it's too late." A chilling silence fell over the room. Roderick turned, confused, his eyes wide as he recognized her. Valentina stiffened, her expression changing from surprise to something much colder. "Marina, what are you doing here?" Roderick asked, his voice filled with perplexity. Marina opened the bag hanging from her shoulder and pulled out a small, clear glass vial, holding it up for everyone to see. The liquid inside swayed slightly, reflecting the light. "Inside? This vial is the truth everyone needs to know," Marina declared, feeling tears burn her eyes, but not letting them fall. "For the past 6 months, Mr. Ashton has been slowly poisoned. Small, imperceptible doses mixed into what he consumed every day. And I have the proof right here." The hall erupted in murmurs. Valentina stepped forward, her face contorted in fury. "This is absurd," she cried, pointing an accusing finger at Marina. "Who do you think you are? Some random employee coming here to invent lies on the most important day of my life? Roderick, send this woman away." But Marina didn't move. She had rehearsed this moment hundreds of times in her mind. She knew it would be difficult, that it would be humiliating. But she also knew she couldn't back down. Not after everything she had discovered. "I'm not inventing anything," Marina replied, looking directly at Roderick. "Mr. Ashton, do you remember when you started feeling those terrible headaches? The constant nausea? The doctors said it was stress, that it was because you worked too much, but it wasn't. It was poisoning, and I can prove it." Roderick ran a hand over his face, visibly shaken. He looked at Valentina, then at Marina, as if he didn't know whom to believe. "Marina has been my employee for years," he said, his voice hesitant. "She has never given me reason to doubt her. But this is a very serious accusation." "It's serious because it's true," Marina insisted, taking another step forward. "And I didn't come all this way on a whim. I came because you have always been good to me, because your mother, Mrs. Helen, was kind to me when I needed it most, and I cannot let something terrible happen when I have the chance to prevent it." The mention of his deceased mother made Roderick close his eyes for a moment. Helen Ashton had been an extraordinary woman, who passed away 3 years earlier under circumstances that everyone accepted as natural, but which had always left a bitter taste in Marina's mouth. Valentina approached Roderick, holding his arm tightly. "Darling, you're not going to believe her, are you?" she whispered, but loud enough for others to hear. "She's clearly jealous, or perhaps she has some mental problem. We need to call security." "I'm not the one who needs security," Marina retorted, surprising herself with her own courage. "Miss Miller, can you explain what a cheap cell phone, hidden under the library sofa, was doing with messages about accelerating plans and insurance values? Can you explain why your makeup kit contained a vial of toxic substance hidden in a false bottom?" Valentina's face lost color. For a split second, her mask of indignation slipped, revealing something much darker underneath. But she quickly recovered. "That's ridiculous. You invaded my things? That's an invasion of privacy. And trying to kill someone is attempted murder," Marina replied firmly. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. I spent weeks trying to find another explanation. But when my son Luke analyzed samples of the coffee Mr. Ashton drank every morning, we found clear traces of poisoning. The room was in complete uproar now. Guests stood up, some taking pictures with their phones, others talking animatedly among themselves. The registry officer seemed not to know what to do, alternating his gaze between Marina and the couple. Roderick broke free from Valentina's arm and walked over to Marina. He studied her for a long moment, as if seeing her for the first time. Are you telling me the truth? He asked. And there was a vulnerability in his voice that broke Marina's heart. Yes, sir, the whole truth, and there are more people who can confirm this. As if summoned, Luke entered through the doors of the registry office. He was a tall young man, 23 years old, with the same determined look as his mother. Beside him came a woman in a police uniform, a badge gleaming on her chest. My name is Detective Carla Mason, the officer announced, showing her identification. And I have a warrant to question Miss Valentina Miller about suspicious activities related to fraud and poisoning. Valentina began to retreat, but she was surrounded. Her eyes darted frantically around the room, looking for an exit that didn't exist. You don't understand, she said, and her voice had changed completely, losing all its previous sweetness. You have no idea what it's like to grow up with nothing, seeing people like you waste fortunes while others starve. I did what I had to do to survive. Poisoning innocent people is not survival, Detective Carla replied. It's a crime, and according to our investigations, Mr. Ashton would not be your first victim. Shock rippled through the room like a wave. Roderick staggered, supported by Marina, who held his arm firmly. What does she mean by that? Roderick asked, looking at Valentina with growing horror. The detective opened a folder she was carrying and began to read. Valentina Miller, formerly known as Valentina Costa, was married twice before. Her first husband suffered sudden organ failure 3 months after altering his will in her favor. The second disappeared under mysterious circumstances after doing the same. Both cases were filed due to lack of evidence, but the similarities to the current case are undeniable. Marina felt Roderick tremble beside her. She squeezed his arm, offering the only comfort she could in that impossible moment. Valentina let out a bitter, humorless laugh. You think you know me? You know nothing. Each of those men had what I needed, and I did what was necessary. The world is a jungle, and I learned early on that you're either the predator or the prey. Valentina Miller, you are under arrest, the detective declared, gesturing to the officers waiting at the door. As she was handcuffed, Valentina looked directly at Marina. There was something in her eyes, something Marina couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't just anger or defeat. It almost seemed like recognition. You think you saved him? Valentina said, her voice low and heavy. You have no idea what's coming. This story is far, far from over. There are secrets in this family that will destroy all of you when they come to light. And with those enigmatic words, she was led out of the registry office, leaving behind a hall full of shocked people and a groom who seemed to have aged 10 years in a matter of minutes. Marina looked at Luke, who gave her an encouraging nod. She then turned to Roderick, who still seemed lost, trying to process everything that had just happened. Mr. Ashton, she said softly, let's get out of here. You need to rest. He nodded weakly, allowing Marina to guide him through the doors, while camera flashes exploded around them, and voices shouted questions that neither of them was ready to answer. The days following the interrupted wedding seemed to drag like molasses. Marina had returned to the Ashton mansion, but everything felt different now. The silence that filled the spacious corridors had a new, heavier weight, as if the walls held secrets that finally demanded to be heard. Roderick had barely left his room for the past 3 days. Marina would go up with trays of food that came down untouched, and her heart ached each time she saw that strong, successful man reduced to a shadow of himself. She understood. Discovering that the person you loved planned your destruction was the kind of betrayal that broke something fundamental within the soul. It was a Thursday afternoon when Roderick finally came downstairs. Marina was in the kitchen preparing chamomile tea when she heard him enter. He seemed to have lost weight, his sunken eyes and unshaven beard giving him a disheveled appearance that contrasted with the always impeccable executive she knew. "Marina," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse, "can we talk?" She nodded, serving 2 cups of tea and gesturing to the kitchen table. They sat opposite each other, and for the first time in almost 10 years, there was no invisible barrier between employer and employee. They were just 2 people who had been through something terrible together. "I need to apologize to you," Roderick began, looking at the cup in his hands. "You've worked in this house for almost a decade. You cared for my mother in her final months. You kept everything running when I was too busy to notice, and I never really saw you. Not the way I should have." Marina felt a lump in her throat. She had spent so long being invisible that she had almost forgotten what it was like to be recognized. "You were always fair to me," she replied. "Always treated me with respect." "Respect is not the same as truly seeing someone," Roderick retorted, finally raising his eyes to meet hers. "You saved my life, Marina, and I didn't even know you had. A son studying criminalistics, that you had dreams, fears, a whole life beyond these walls. That shames me deeply." Before Marina could respond, the doorbell echoed through the house. She rose to answer it, but Roderick gestured for her to remain seated. "I'll get it," he said, and there was a newfound determination in his voice. Minutes later, he returned accompanied by a man in a gray suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Marina recognized Dr. Bernard Cross, the Ashton family lawyer for over 20 years. "Marina, please stay," Roderick said. "What Dr. Cross has to say is important, and you deserve to hear it." The lawyer seemed uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. He opened his briefcase and took out several documents, spreading them on the table. "Mr. Ashton, after the events at the registry office, I took the liberty of investigating Miss Miller's past more deeply," he began, his voice grave. "And what I discovered is disturbing, to say the least." Marina felt a shiver run down her spine. Valentina's last words echoed in her mind. "There are secrets in this family that will destroy all of you when they come to light." "Continue," Roderick ordered, tense. Valentina Miller did not act alone. She was part of a larger scheme, more organized than we initially imagined. There were other people involved, people who helped her get close to you, who provided information about your routine, your habits, your vulnerabilities. "Who?" Roderick asked, his voice sharp. "Who was helping her?" Dr. Cross took a deep breath, and Marina noticed his hands trembling slightly as he held the papers. "That is still being investigated. But there is something more. Something I discovered when reviewing your mother, Mrs. Helen's, medical records." The silence that followed was absolute. Marina saw the color drain from Roderick's face. "What are you trying to say?" he asked, each word coming with difficulty. "The circumstances of Mrs. Helen's passing 3 years ago, the symptoms she presented in her final months, are alarmingly similar to what you recently began to experience. Unexplained headaches, nausea, extreme fatigue. At the time, we attributed everything to natural causes, but now—" Roderick stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. His hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "Are you telling me my mother was poisoned? That Valentina killed my mother?" Marina instinctively stood up, positioning herself beside Roderick. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, feeling him tremble under her touch. "The evidence strongly suggests that possibility," the lawyer confirmed, his voice heavy. "Valentina met you 6 months ago, but she had already been circulating in the same circles as your family for at least 3 years. There are records of her at charity events, fundraising galas, always on the periphery, always observing." Marina felt her legs weaken. She remembered Mrs. Helen, that elegant and kind woman who had always treated her with genuine goodness. She remembered the last months, how the matriarch's health had deteriorated rapidly, how everyone had accepted that it was simply her time. But what if it wasn't? What if it had been deliberate, calculated, cold? "There's more," Dr. Cross continued, and Marina noticed he was avoiding looking directly at her. During the investigation, we found old documents in Mrs. Helen's personal archives, documents she kept locked in a private safe. He pulled a yellowed envelope from his briefcase and placed it on the table. The delicate handwriting on the front simply said, "To be opened only in case of emergency." Roderick picked up the envelope with trembling hands and opened it. Marina watched as he read the contents, seeing a series of emotions cross his face: confusion, shock, disbelief, and finally, something that looked like hope mixed with pain. "This can't be right," he murmured, reading and rereading the words. "This can't be true." "Mr. Ashton?" Marina called, concerned. "What does it say?" He raised his eyes to her, and Marina saw tears glistening there. "Marina, how long have you worked here?" "Almost 10 years, sir. Mrs. Helen hired me right after my husband passed away when Luke was still small." "And you never thought it was strange?" Roderick asked, his voice breaking. "A high society woman hiring a housekeeper with no references, no prior experience, just because she found you at a bus stop crying with a child in your arms?" Marina blinked, surprised. She had never questioned Mrs. Helen's kindness, had simply been grateful for it. "I always thought she had a generous heart," Marina replied. "She did," Roderick confirmed, handing her the letter. "But there was a specific reason for her generosity towards you. Read it." With trembling fingers, Marina took the letter. Mrs. Helen's handwriting was familiar. She had seen it on shopping lists and notes left around the house hundreds of times. But the content of the words made the world spin around her. "My dear son, if you are reading this, it means the time has come for the truth. There is a secret I have carried all my life, a weight that shaped every decision I made. Before I met your father, when I was just 18, I fell in love with a young man from the city. We were young and reckless, and when I discovered I was expecting a baby, my parents sent me away. The girl was born in a convent in a rural county, and the nuns took her. I never knew what happened to her. I never got to hold her beyond those first moments. I spent my entire life searching, hiring investigators, following leads that led nowhere. And then, 10 years ago, I finally found her. Marina Scott is my daughter, Roderick, your half-sister. I brought her close in the only way I could, without destroying the life she had built, without forcing her into a truth that might be too heavy to bear. Forgive me for keeping this secret, but I needed to have her near, even if she never knew who I truly was to her." Marina had to sit down. The letter slipped from her hands and fell onto the table. She heard her own breathing, loud and ragged, but it seemed to come from far away. "No," she whispered. "This can't be true. I'm an orphan. I grew up in an orphanage. The nuns said my mother didn't want me, that she abandoned me." "The nuns lied," Dr. Cross said softly. "Or, more precisely, they followed the instructions of Mrs. Helen's parents. It was common practice at the time. Wealthy families got rid of scandals that way." Roderick knelt in front of Marina, taking her hands. "Marina, you are my sister. My mother spent a decade by your side, watching you raise your son, proud of your strength, and desperately wishing she could tell you the truth." "But why didn't she tell me?" Marina asked, tears finally overflowing. "Why keep it? I would have understood. I would have—" "She was afraid," the lawyer interrupted. "Afraid you would hate her for abandoning you. Afraid the revelation would destroy the life you had built. Afraid that my client and other family members wouldn't accept it. Mrs. Helen was a strong woman, but she carried guilt and shame from that period of her life." Marina covered her face with her hands, sobbing. She felt Roderick's arms around her, embracing her for the first time not as an employer, but as a brother. "There's something else you need to know," Dr. Cross said, his voice tense. "Valentina knew about this. She discovered the secret somehow, and we believe that's why she killed Mrs. Helen, to prevent the truth from coming out before she could execute her plan to marry Mr. Ashton and control the fortune." Marina sharply raised her head. "How could she know? How did she discover something that even I didn't know?" "We are investigating that," the lawyer replied. "But it seems there's a source, someone who had access to very intimate family information. And that person is actively working against you. Roderick's phone rang, breaking the tension of the moment. He looked at the screen and frowned. "It's Detective Carla," he said, answering. "Hello? Yes, she's here with me." "What? When?" "I understand. We'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up, his face pale. "The detective needs to speak with us urgently. Valentina wants to make a deal. She says she has information about who is truly behind all this, but she will only speak if you are present, Marina. She asked for you specifically." Marina felt a chill run down her spine. Why did Valentina want to speak with her? What else did this woman know? "I'll go," she said, wiping tears from her face. "I need to hear what she has to say. I need answers." Roderick nodded, squeezing her hand. "Then we'll go together, as siblings." That word, siblings, sounded strange and wonderful at the same time. Marina had spent her entire life feeling alone in the world, even with Luke by her side, and now, suddenly, she had a family. She had a brother. She had a story. But as they prepared to leave, Marina couldn't shake the feeling that the revelations of that day were just the beginning. Valentina's words echoed in her mind. This story is far from over. And Marina had a terrible certainty that she was right. The police station smelled of old coffee and paper. Marina followed Roderick through the narrow corridors, past desks cluttered with case files, and officers busy with their computers. Detective Carla awaited them in an interrogation room, her grave expression revealing that the news would not be good. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said, gesturing to the chairs. "The situation has become considerably more complicated in the last few hours." "What happened?" Roderick asked, sitting beside Marina. "Valentina is willing to cooperate, but there are conditions. She claims that the information she possesses is vital, not only for her case but for dismantling something much larger. And she insists on speaking directly with you, Marina." Marina felt her stomach clench. Through the one-way mirror in the room, she could see Valentina sitting alone in the adjacent room. She looked smaller now, without her elegant clothes and impeccable makeup. She wore a simple prison uniform, her hair tied back in a low ponytail. But her eyes, when they met Marina's through the glass, were alert and calculating. "Why me?" Marina asked. "What does she want with me?" "She refuses to tell anyone else," the detective replied. "I can guarantee your safety. She is handcuffed, and there will be guards present, but the decision is yours." Marina looked at Roderick, who seemed torn between protecting her and respecting her autonomy. "You don't have to do this," he said. "You've already done more than enough." "No," Marina replied, standing up. "I need to hear what she has to say. After everything I've discovered today, I need to understand the whole truth." Minutes later, Marina was sitting across from Valentina. The distance between them was only a meter, but it felt like an abyss. Valentina studied her with disconcerting intensity, as if she were searching for something specific in Marina's face. "You didn't recognize me, did you?" Valentina began, her voice low. "But I recognized you the moment I first saw you 3 years ago, cleaning the corridors of that mansion." Marina frowned, confused. "Recognized me? We've never met before." "Yes, we have," Valentina insisted, leaning forward. "But you were too small to remember. St. Mary's Haven, an orphanage in a rural county in the American Midwest. You were 5 when you left with those distant relatives. I was 7. Marina's heart stopped for a moment. St. Mary's Haven. She knew that name, but the memories of that time were fragmented, blurred by time and pain. "We shared the same room," Valentina continued, and there was something genuine in her voice now, something that cut through all the layers of hardness. "You were the only friend I had, the only person in that horrible place who made me feel less alone. We promised we'd be sisters forever, remember? That when we grew up, we'd find a way to stay together." Marina felt tears burn her eyes. There was a vague, distant memory of an older girl who protected her from others, who shared her food, who told stories to ward off the fear of darkness. Valentina, Marina whispered, and the name stirred something deep in her memory. Viv? Were you Viv? Valentina smiled, and for a brief moment, Marina saw the girl she had been, before life transformed her into something so different. You remember, Valentina said, and there was genuine relief in her voice. I thought I had lost you forever when those relatives took you away. You were lucky, Marina. You found people who wanted you, who gave you a chance. I stayed. I stayed until I was 18, moving from home to home, learning that the world had no mercy for girls like us. Viv, what happened to you? Marina asked, her voice choked. How did you become this? Survival, Valentina replied simply. I learned early that no one was going to save me, that if I wanted something in this life, I'd have to take it. And I became very good at it. But why? Why Roderick's mother? Why my brother? Valentina leaned back in her chair, her chains clinking lightly. Because a nun, in her last days, told me a secret. She said she had something weighing on her conscience, something about a baby who arrived at the orphanage many years ago, a baby from a wealthy family who was left there so the scandal could be covered up, and she mentioned the name Helen Ashton. Marina felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. You knew who I was. You knew Mrs. Helen was my mother. Yes, Valentina confirmed. And when I found out where you were, working as a housekeeper in your own biological mother's house, without even knowing who you really were, I saw an opportunity. If I could marry Roderick, I would have access to all that fortune. And if anyone found out about you, I could use it as leverage. So you killed Mrs. Helen to ensure she never told me the truth, Marina said, her voice trembling with contained anger. You took away her chance to finally have her daughter back. I did what I thought was necessary, Valentina replied, but there was a hint of remorse in her eyes now. But you need to understand, Marina, I didn't act alone. I never would have gained access to the Ashton family, never would have found out about you if it weren't for someone who was already inside. Someone close, who provided information, who facilitated everything. Marina leaned forward, her heart racing. Who? Who was helping you? The lawyer, Valentina said. Dr. Bernard Cross. My uncle. Marina's world stopped. The lawyer. The man who had been at the house that afternoon, who had brought the revelations, who seemed so concerned and helpful. It was him. The traitor was under their noses the whole time. No, Marina whispered. He can't. He can, and he is, Valentina interrupted. My uncle has worked for the Ashton family for decades. He knew about Helen's secret from the beginning, and for years he blackmailed her, slowly bleeding her fortune. When he realized Helen was looking for you, that she planned to finally reveal the truth, he panicked. Another heiress meant less money for him to control, less power. So he sought me out, offered me a deal. I would get close to Roderick, marry him, and then he would ensure that both Roderick and Helen were out of the way. And we would split everything. Marina felt nausea rising in her throat. The man who had just embraced Roderick, who had consoled them, who pretended to be on their side, was the architect of it all. But I messed everything up, didn't I? Valentina continued with a bitter smile. I underestimated you, Marina. I underestimated the strong woman that scared little girl had become. And when you interrupted the wedding, when you brought the evidence, I knew I was finished. But my uncle isn't. He's still out there, still pretending to be the loyal lawyer, still planning. Why are you telling me this? Marina asked. What do you gain from it? Valentina was silent for a long moment, looking at her own handcuffed hands. Because despite everything I've become, everything I've done, you were still the only person who ever made me feel like I mattered. And because my uncle used you, used our childhood friendship, used your desire to belong somewhere for his own ends, and that went too far, even for me. Marina felt tears streaming down her face. There was so much pain in that room, so many lives destroyed by greed and desperation. Valentina, what you did was terrible, unforgivable. But thank you for telling me the truth. There's more, Valentina said, her voice urgent now. My uncle doesn't work alone. He's part of something bigger, a network of people who do exactly this: identify wealthy targets, plant operatives to get close to them, and then steal their fortunes. They have resources, connections, and they won't let you and Roderick live now that you know too much. The door to the room opened abruptly. Detective Carla entered, her face tense. Marina, we need to get you out of here now. Dr. Cross has just disappeared. He's not answering calls, and when we sent a team to his office, we found documents being burned and computers destroyed. Marina stood up, her legs wobbly. She looked at Valentina one last time. He's going to try to kill Roderick, isn't he? Marina asked. And Luke, he's going after all of us. Yes, Valentina replied simply. And he won't stop until he succeeds, unless you stop him first. Marina rushed out of the room, followed by the detective. Roderick was waiting for her outside, and seeing the expression on her face, he immediately pulled her into a hug. What happened? What did she say? We have to get out of here, Marina said, grabbing his arm. We have to find Luke and go somewhere safe. The lawyer, Roderick. Dr. Bernard Cross is the traitor, and he's still out there. Marina's phone rang at that moment. It was Luke. She answered with trembling hands. Mom, where are you? Her son's voice was tense, scared. There's a strange car following me since I left college. I think I'm in danger. Luke, listen to me carefully, Marina said, forcing herself to keep her voice calm. Go straight to the police station. Don't stop anywhere. I'm waiting for you here. You'll be fine, my son. You'll be fine. But even as she spoke the words, Marina felt a cold fear spreading through her chest. The game had changed. It was no longer about revealing the truth or seeking justice. Now it was about survival. And somewhere out there, in the shadows, Dr. Bernard Cross was planning his next move. The police station had transformed into an improvised bunker. Roderick, Marina, Luke, and Detective Carla were gathered in a conference room, surrounded by officers and monitoring equipment. In the past 12 hours, 3 attempts to locate Dr. Bernard Cross had failed. He was a ghost, disappearing into thin air like smoke. Luke sat beside Marina, still visibly shaken by the pursuit he had suffered. She held his hand tightly, as if she could protect him through touch alone. Roderick paced back and forth, his phone glued to his ear as he spoke with private security contacts. We managed to track some of Dr. Cross's financial transactions, Detective Carla announced, spreading documents on the table. And you need to see this. Over the past 5 years, he siphoned almost $20 million from the Ashton fortune through fake investments and non-existent legal consultancies. 20 million, Roderick repeated, incredulous. How did my mother not notice? She did notice, the detective replied. We found correspondence between her and an independent auditor she had secretly hired. She was investigating, building a case against him. And then she suddenly fell ill. Marina closed her eyes. Each new revelation was like a stab. Mrs. Helen had been strong, intelligent, trying to protect her family and uncover the truth. And she had paid with her life for it. The network is larger than we imagined, the detective continued. Dr. Cross is connected to at least 6 other lawyers in different states. Together, they form an organization that specializes in infiltrating wealthy families and siphoning their fortunes. They have contacts in banks, registry offices, even in some sectors of the judiciary. How are we going to fight something like this? Luke asked, his young voice trembling slightly. These are powerful people with infinite resources. We fight with the truth, Marina replied, squeezing her son's hand. And by not giving up. The detective's phone rang. She answered, listening for a few moments before hanging up with a grim expression. Valentina wants to speak with you again. She says she remembered something crucial, but will only reveal it in person. It could be a trap, Roderick warned. Her uncle has disappeared. He could be using her to lure us in. Or she could have information that will save our lives, Marina countered. Viv knows me. If she says it's important, I believe her. Viv? Roderick asked, confused. Valentina, Marina explained softly. We grew up together in the orphanage. We were friends before life took us on such different paths. I know it seems impossible, but there's still something human in her. Something that can help us. Half an hour later, Marina and Roderick were back in the interrogation room. Valentina looked even paler, more fragile than before. There was a scratch on her face that hadn't been there on the last visit. What happened to you? Marina asked, pointing to the injury. My dear uncle tried to ensure my silence, Valentina replied with a bitter smile. He has contacts in here too. An inmate tried to attack me in the yard earlier today. Luckily, some guards intervened in time. He's willing to kill his own niece, Roderick said, horrified. He's willing to do whatever it takes to protect his operation, Valentina corrected. And that's why I need you to listen carefully. There's a ledger, a physical record of all transactions, all crimes, all the names involved in the network. My uncle keeps it as insurance in case any of his partners decide to betray him. Where is it? Marina asked. In a safe in an apartment he keeps on the coast, Fort Beach, number 47. He thinks no one knows about the place, but I accidentally discovered it a few months ago. The safe is behind a false painting in the main living room. The combination is his date of birth. 7/15/1968. Detective Carla, who had been observing from outside, entered the room. If we can get that ledger, we can dismantle the entire organization, she said. But it will also be extremely dangerous. Bernard certainly has the place watched. Then we'll set up an official operation, Roderick suggested. Surround the apartment. Send a SWAT team. It won't work, Valentina interrupted. The moment he notices police movement, he'll destroy everything. You need a different approach. You need someone he won't expect. I'll go, Marina said suddenly, and everyone turned to look at her. He sees me as a housekeeper, an invisible woman. That's exactly what I'll use to my advantage. Absolutely not, Roderick protested. It's too dangerous. I won't allow you to risk yourself like that. With all due respect, brother, Marina said, using the word for the first time and seeing Roderick's eyes well up. It's not your decision. I've spent my whole life being underestimated, being treated as if I were invisible. For the first time, that can be an advantage. She's right, Valentina agreed, looking at Marina with something that seemed like pride. You were always the bravest of us two, Marina. Even when we were children, you were the one who stood up to bullies, who protected the younger ones. I should have learned from you, instead of becoming what I became. Marina reached across the table, taking Valentina's hand. It's never too late to choose a different path, she said. You're doing the right thing now. That counts for something. Tears streamed down Valentina's face. If something goes wrong, if you need help, there's a code. 3 short taps on any metal surface. It was something we created in the orphanage, remember? Our signal that we needed each other. Marina remembered. 3 taps. The sound that meant, I'm not alone. You're with me. How many dark nights had that simple code chased away fear? I remember, Marina whispered. The plan was meticulously put together. Marina would go to the apartment disguised as an employee of a cleaning company, using the excuse that the building had hired a deep cleaning service for all units. She would have a hidden communicator, and a support team would be 3 blocks away, ready to intervene at the slightest sign of trouble. Luke begged to go along, but Marina was adamant. Her son needed to be safe. Roderick, however, insisted on being on the support team, and Marina didn't have the heart to refuse. He had already lost so much. She understood his need to be close, to protect his newly discovered sister. The next morning, Marina was in an unmarked car 3 blocks from the building in Fort Beach. She wore a simple cleaning uniform, carried a bucket with products, and had her hair tied back in a tight bun. Looking at herself in the rearview mirror, she saw exactly what she expected. An ordinary woman, invisible, easily forgettable. Are you ready? Detective Carla asked through the discreet communicator in her ear. I am, Marina replied, though her heart pounded so hard it felt like it wanted to burst from her chest. Remember, get in, get the book, and get out. Don't try to confront him if he's there. Your safety is the priority. Marina nodded even though Carla couldn't see her. She got out of the car and walked calmly towards the building. The doorman barely looked at her when she showed a fake ID and explained about the cleaning service. He simply nodded and returned his attention to his phone. The elevator slowly ascended to the 4th floor. Marina counted every second, breathing deeply to calm her nerves. The doors opened with a soft ding, and she stepped out into a well-lit corridor. Apartment 47 was at the end of the hall. Marina walked to it, her legs feeling like lead. She knocked on the door first, waiting, praying no one would answer. Silence. Using the set of master keys the police had provided, she carefully opened the door. The apartment was empty but clearly inhabited. There was a still warm coffee cup on the kitchen counter, documents scattered on the living room table. Marina moved quickly, locating the painting Valentina had described. It was a vibrant, abstract painting, incongruous with the sober decor of the rest of the room. "I found the painting," she whispered into the communicator. "Great, take it off the wall and open the safe. We have approximately 10 minutes before the building's security system registers your presence as anomalous." Marina removed the painting, revealing a silver safe embedded in the wall. Her fingers trembled as she dialed the combination. 07-15 1968. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft click, the safe door opened. Inside was exactly what Valentina had described, a thick, heavy brown leather ledger with years of meticulous records. Marina picked it up, feeling the weight of the truth in her hands. "I got it," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I have the book." "Excellent. Now get out. Of there. Fast." Marina put the book in her cleaning bag and turned to leave. That's when she heard the key turning in the front door lock. Her blood ran cold. Someone was entering the apartment. Marina looked around frantically, searching for an exit, a hiding place, anything. But it was too late. The door opened, and Dr. Bernard Cross entered, stopping abruptly when he saw her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then slowly, a cold smile spread across the lawyer's face. "Marina," he said, his voice icy. "What an unpleasant surprise." Time seemed to freeze. Marina held the bag with the ledger tightly against her chest, her heart thundering. Dr. Cross closed the door behind him with deliberate calm, his eyes never leaving hers. He looked different from the well-dressed, helpful man she had known. There was a coldness in his gaze now, something predatory that had always been there, but which she had never noticed. "Marina, I need you to hand me what's in that bag," he said, taking a step towards her. "Let's resolve this civilly." "Stay where you are," Marina ordered, backing away. Her right hand instinctively went to the communicator in her ear, but Bernard shook his head. "Don't bother. I know you're not alone, that there's probably a team on standby nearby. But you see, if you try anything, I'll make a single call, and your son Luke will have a very unfortunate accident. My associates are positioned near his college at this very moment." Marina's blood ran cold. She could hear Detective Carla shouting orders in her ear, but the sound seemed to come from very far away. "You're bluffing," Marina said, though her voice trembled. "Do you want to risk your son's life to find out?" Bernard retorted, pulling his cell phone from his pocket. "One message from me and it's all over for him. So, I suggest you be reasonable. Hand me the book and everyone gets out of this alive." Marina thought frantically. She couldn't risk Luke, but she also couldn't just hand over the only evidence they had against the entire criminal organization. She needed to buy time. She needed to find a way out. "Marina, don't hand it over," came Detective Carla's urgent voice in her ear. "We're tracking Luke's location now. He's safe at the police station. It's a bluff." Marina took a deep breath. Luke was safe. The certainty gave her courage. "No," she said firmly. "I'm not handing anything over. You've already caused enough damage. You killed Mrs. Helen, tried to kill Roderick, destroyed lives for pure greed. This ends now." Bernard's expression hardened. "You're as naive as your mother was," he said, and there was venom in every word. "Helen thought she could defy me, that she could investigate my activities and get away with it. Look where that got her." You confessed, Marina said, realizing too late that he knew about the communicator. You just confessed to the murder of Mrs. Helen. Bernard laughed, a humorless sound. Do you think a forced confession will harm me? I have judges, prosecutors, police in my pocket. I have connections you can't even imagine. Even if they arrest me, I'll be free in weeks. And then, Marina, then you and everyone you love will pay for this interference. It was then that Marina heard it. 3 soft, rhythmic taps coming from the apartment window. The code, her and Valentina's signal. Marina quickly looked at the window and saw a reflection, a shadow moving in the adjacent building. The rescue team had found a position. She just needed to keep Bernard distracted for a few more seconds. You talk about connections, Marina said, forcing her voice to sound firm. But what do you really have? A life built on lies, on stealing from people who trusted you. My brother trusted you. Mrs. Helen trusted you for decades, and you betrayed that trust in the most cowardly way possible. Your brother? Bernard spat with contempt. Do you really believe that being Helen's daughter makes you part of this family? You're a bastard, Marina. A shame Helen tried to hide her whole life. Roderick will never truly accept you. To him, you'll always be the housekeeper. The words were like whips, but Marina didn't let them penetrate. She knew the truth now. Roderick had called her sister, had cried with her, had fought by her side. Nothing Bernard said could change that. You're wrong, Marina said, and more importantly, you're finished. At that moment, the window exploded in a shower of glass. 2 police officers entered on ropes, landing perfectly between Marina and Bernard. The apartment door was simultaneously kicked in, and Detective Carla entered, followed by a full team. Bernard tried to run, but was immobilized. In seconds. Marina held the bag against her chest, her legs trembling with relief. It was over. They had succeeded. Are you okay? Detective Carla asked, approaching Marina. I am, Marina replied, though she could barely believe her own words. Luke? Safe. He was at the police station the whole time. We sent agents to pick him up from college as soon as Bernard disappeared. Roderick burst into the apartment, his eyes frantically searching for Marina. When he saw her, whole and unharmed, he crossed the room and pulled her into a hug so tight Marina could barely breathe. Never again, he said, his voice choked. Never do something like that again. I almost died of worry. I'm sorry, Marina whispered, finally allowing herself to feel the fear she had suppressed. But it worked. We have the book. We have everything. In the following weeks, the contents of the ledger revealed a scheme much larger than anyone could imagine. 32 families in 6 different states had been targeted by the organization over the past 10 years. The total amount diverted exceeded $80 million. 12 lawyers were arrested, along with bank employees, registry officials, and even 2 corrupt judges. Dr. Bernard Cross tried to make a deal, tried to offer information in exchange for a reduced sentence, but justice was unyielding. The evidence was irrefutable, and his confession recorded by Marina sealed his fate. Valentina was also tried. Her cooperation was taken into account, but the crimes she had committed were too serious to be ignored. She received a 15-year sentence, with the possibility of parole after 8 years of good behavior. Marina visited her in prison a month after the trial. They sat separated by glass, speaking through antiquated telephones. How are you? Marina asked. Better than I deserve, Valentina replied with a sad smile. For the first time in years, I can sleep without nightmares. I guess a clear conscience really makes a difference. Viv, I wanted to thank you. That signal at the window, you knew the team was there and warned me, didn't you? Valentina shrugged. The detective asked me to cooperate with the rescue if I could. I thought it was the least I could do. After all, you saved my life at the orphanage more times than I can count. It was time to repay you. When you get out, Marina said, if you want, there's a place for you, a chance to truly start over. Tears glistened in Valentina's eyes. You would offer me that, after everything? We can't change the past, Marina replied, but we can choose who we want to be in the future. And I choose to believe that the girl I knew in the orphanage still exists somewhere inside you. Marina returned home that afternoon with a lighter heart. The Ashton mansion seemed different now. It was no longer the place where she worked as a housekeeper, but her home. Her brother had insisted that she and Luke move. In and after some hesitation, she had agreed. Luke was flourishing. He continued his criminalistic studies, but now with a generous scholarship provided by the foundation Roderick had created in memory of Mrs. Helen. The Helen Ashton Foundation was dedicated to helping vulnerable women, offering education, shelter, and job opportunities. Marina had become the director of the foundation, a role that fit her perfectly. She understood the women they helped because she had been one of them. She knew the struggle, the fear, the feeling of invisibility. And now she used her voice and resources to ensure that no other woman had to go through what she had. "Mom, come see this!" Luke shouted from the living room, interrupting her thoughts. Marina entered the living room and saw the television on. A news report showed images of several arrests being made across the country. The operation against the fraud network had expanded, and more members were being identified and captured every day. "You did this," Luke said, looking at her with evident pride. "You and Uncle Roderick dismantled an entire criminal organization." "We did this," Marina corrected. "All of us. You, Detective Carla, even Valentina. It took many brave people to get here." Roderick entered the room at that moment, carrying folders under his arm. He now worked almost exclusively with the foundation, having delegated most of his technology businesses to trusted managers. Discovering the truth about his family, about his mother and sister, had changed his priorities. "I have news," he announced, sitting beside Marina on the sofa. "We managed to recover most of the money that was diverted from the family over the years. I spoke with the lawyers, and half of that amount will be allocated to the foundation. The other half, Marina, is yours by right. It's the inheritance our mother always wanted you to have." Marina shook her head. "I don't need that much money, Roderick. Use it for the foundation to help more people." "Marina," he said, taking her hand, "you've spent your whole life putting yourself last, making yourself invisible so others could shine. But now it's your turn. It's time for you to accept that you deserve good things, that you deserve abundance and security. Our mother would have wanted this. I want this for you." Tears streamed down Marina's face. She squeezed her brother's hand, finally allowing herself to accept not only the money, but everything it represented: belonging, family, love. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for accepting me, for truly seeing me." "Thank you for saving my life," Roderick replied, "in every possible way." That night, Marina sat in what had been Mrs. Helen's room, now transformed into an office for the foundation. She held the diary her mother had kept for years, reading and rereading the pages that spoke of her, of the lost daughter who had never been forgotten. One passage in particular touched her deeply. "I see Marina every day. I see the strong, dignified woman she has become, and my heart overflows with pride and remorse. Pride for the extraordinary person she is. Remorse for not having had the courage to tell her the truth. But perhaps true love is not about blood or revealed truths. Perhaps it is about being present, about caring silently, about finding ways to protect those we love, even when they don't know they need to be protected." Marina gently closed the diary. Her mother had never had the chance to tell her the truth in life, but through these words, through the actions she had taken to protect her, the love was clear. And that love, Marina realized, transcended all lies, all secrets, all lost time. She looked out the window at the moonlit garden. Tomorrow would be a new day, full of challenges and opportunities. There were women to help, a foundation to manage, a brother and a son to love. Her life now had purpose, meaning beyond survival. Marina Scott had spent years being invisible, but now finally she was seen. And more importantly, she saw herself, not as a housekeeper or an abandoned daughter, but as a woman of immeasurable worth, someone who had faced the worst and emerged not only whole, but stronger. And that, she realized with a smile, was the greatest victory of all. 6 months had passed since Dr. Bernard Cross's arrest and the dismantling of the criminal network. The city was calmer, but the scars of what had happened were still fresh in the memory of everyone involved. Marina woke up early that Saturday morning. The sun hadn't fully risen when she went down to the kitchen and made coffee. Her morning routine had become a sacred moment for her. It was when she reflected, planned her day, and gave thanks for the blessings she now had. Luke was in his final year of college, about to graduate with honors. Roderick had found peace after years of loneliness, rediscovering the joy of building something meaningful through the foundation. And Marina, for the first time in her life, felt truly at home. But the peace would be tested once more. The phone rang at 7 a.m, an unusual hour. Marina answered and heard Detective Carla's tense voice. "Marina, I need you and Roderick to come to the police station immediately. There are urgent developments in the case." 2 hours later, Marina, Roderick, and Luke were sitting in the same conference room where everything had begun months ago. Detective Carla looked exhausted, her bloodshot eyes suggesting a sleepless night. "We received information from Valentina last night," she began, opening a thick folder. "Information that completely changes our understanding of the case." "What did she say?" Roderick asked, tense. Dr. Bernard Cross was not the leader of the organization. He was merely a regional manager, if you will. The true leadership is based abroad, and they were not happy with the exposure the case received. According to Valentina, there is a specific person, known only as the architect, who commands the entire operation. Marina felt a chill run down her spine. "And they'll want revenge, won't they, for us dismantling the American network?" "Exactly," the detective confirmed. "Worse still, Valentina received a threatening message yesterday. Someone managed to bypass the prison's security system. The message said that the architect leaves no loose ends, and that everyone involved in dismantling the operation would be eliminated." Luke turned pale upon hearing this. "Are we talking about an international organization, with resources to reach anyone?" "Yes," the detective replied gravely. "And we need to act fast." Valentina revealed that there is a single physical copy of the complete global organization's record, including names of all leaders, locations of stolen funds, and details of operations in 12 countries. If we can get that record, we can dismantle everything at once. "Where is this record?" Marina asked. "In a bank vault in a neutral offshore territory on a private island used by high-ranking criminals as a free zone. It's almost impossible to get there undetected, and even if we could, we would only have minutes before they were alerted." "So it's a suicide mission," Roderick concluded. "It could be," the detective admitted, "but it's also our only chance to end this definitively. Otherwise, you will live looking over your shoulders for the rest of your lives." Marina looked at her brother and her son. She had worked so hard to build a safe life for them, and now everything was threatened again. "There's something else," the detective continued. "Valentina offered to help. She knows the island, she knows the security scheme because she was there once with Bernard. But that would mean taking her out of prison under protective custody, and it would be extremely risky." "Why would she do that?" Luke asked. "Why risk herself?" Marina knew the answer. "Redemption," she said softly. "And because, deep down, she is still that girl from the orphanage who promised we would be sisters forever. I'll talk to her." The prison visit was approved on an emergency basis. Marina found Valentina in a private room, under heavy guard. The woman seemed to have aged in recent months, but there was also a clarity in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "You came," Valentina said, a small smile touching her lips. "Of course I came," Marina replied, sitting opposite her. "I heard what you offered. Viv, you don't have to do this. You've already helped so much." "I do," Valentina insisted. "Marina, I took your mother from you. I took years you could have had together. I can't undo that, but I can ensure you have a future. That you, Roderick, and Luke live without fear. Let me do this." Marina felt tears burn her eyes. "You know you might not come back from this mission, right? That the architect probably has orders to eliminate you too?" "I know," Valentina replied calmly. "And strangely, I'm at peace with it." For the first time in a long time, I'm going to do something right. I'm going to protect the only person who ever made me feel like I was worth something." "You were always worth something," Marina said, taking Valentina's hands. "Both of us are. Life just convinced us otherwise." The plan was developed in 72 hours. Marina, Roderick, Valentina, and a small team of special agents would depart on a discreet boat to the island. Valentina would guide them to the vault location, they would retrieve the record, and an extraction team would get them out before security could react. Luke begged to go along, but this time Marina was adamant. He needed to be safe. He needed to be there in case something went wrong. The night before their departure, Marina couldn't sleep. She wandered through the mansion, looking at each room, each memory she had built there. She found Roderick in the library, also awake, looking at old photos of Mrs. Helen. "Do you think she would be proud of us?" Marina asked, sitting beside him. "I think she already was," Roderick replied. "But yes, I think she would be proud to see us fighting together, protecting each other. It was all she ever wanted for us." "I'm scared," Marina admitted. "Not of dying, but of losing you, of losing Luke, of this whole family we just found disappearing." Roderick pulled her into a hug. "We won't let that happen," he said firmly. "We are stronger together, and we will come home, all of us." The journey to the island took 6 hours. The sea was rough, and Marina spent the time mentally reviewing the plan. Valentina was surprisingly calm, looking at the horizon with a serene expression. "What are you thinking about?" Marina asked, approaching her. "I'm thinking about how life takes strange turns," Valentina replied. 2 orphaned girls, separated by decades, reunited on an impossible mission. If someone had told us this when we were children, we would have thought it was a crazy story. "And would it have been a happy ending story?" Marina asked. Valentina looked at her with bright eyes. "That's still to be written," she said. "But I hope so, at least for you. You deserve all the happy endings, Marina." The island appeared on the horizon at dusk. It was smaller than Marina imagined, surrounded by sharp rocks and treacherous waters. They anchored in a hidden cove and disembarked in silence. Valentina guided them along a narrow, steep path to a concrete structure camouflaged in the vegetation. Security was high, with cameras and motion sensors everywhere, but Valentina knew every blind spot, every gap in the system. "The vault is underground," she whispered. "There's only one entrance, and it's guarded by at least 4 armed men. We'll need a distraction." "I'll go," Roderick offered. "I can pose as one of the organization's operators, say I have urgent information about the situation in the U.S. "It's too risky," Marina protested. "No riskier than any other part of this plan," Roderick retorted. "Trust me, sister." That word, sister, still made Marina's heart clench with emotion. She reluctantly nodded. The plan unfolded with military precision. Roderick approached the entrance, speaking confidently with the guards. While they were distracted, Marina, Valentina, and 2 agents slipped through the side entrance. The basement was cold and damp, lit only by emergency lights. They moved quickly, following Valentina's instructions until they reached a massive steel door. "This is the place," Valentina said. "But there's a problem I didn't mention before." Marina turned to her, alarmed. "What problem?" "The vault requires biometric authentication, fingerprint and retina scan, and only 3 people in the world have access: the architect, Bernard, and me." "You planned this," Marina realized. "You knew you'd have to come from the beginning." "Yes," Valentina admitted. "And I also knew that the architect would receive an alert the moment I used my biometrics. We'll have maybe 3 minutes before the entire island comes after us." She placed her finger on the reader and brought her eye to the scanner. The vault door opened with a hydraulic hiss, revealing a small space with a single protected digital file. Marina grabbed the file, her heart pounding. They had succeeded. They had everything they needed to dismantle the organization. That's when the sound of alarms echoed through the structure. "Run!" Valentina shouted. They ran back down the corridor, but the path was blocked by armed men. There was no way out. They were cornered. "This way!" Valentina pointed to an emergency staircase leading to the roof. It's our only chance. They ran up the stairs, closely pursued by the guards. The roof was exposed to the strong wind and the rain that had begun to fall. The extraction boat was 200 yards offshore, but there was no way to reach it with the guards blocking all exits. Marina, Valentina said, grabbing her arm, I need you to trust me one last time. Viv, no. Promise me you'll take care of your family. Promise me you'll live the life I never could have. Promise me you'll be happy. Before Marina could respond, Valentina yelled at the approaching guards. I'm Valentina Miller. The architect wants my head. Come and get me. She ran in the opposite direction, drawing the guards' fire away from Marina and Roderick. No, Marina shouted, trying to go after her. But Roderick held her back. She's making a choice, he said, tears streaming down his face. She's giving us a chance. We can't waste it. They ran to the edge of the roof, where a rope had been thrown by the extraction team. Marina looked back one last time and saw Valentina standing on the edge of the roof, smiling at her. 3 taps. Valentina tapped 3 times on a nearby metal beam. The code. You're not alone. I'm with you. Marina tapped 3 times back on the metal structure near her, tears obscuring her vision. And then Valentina jumped. Marina screamed, but Roderick was already pulling her down the rope. They descended hastily as gunshots echoed above them. As they reached the boat, the team immediately accelerated, moving them away from the island. Marina looked back through the rain, searching for Valentina, but saw nothing but the dark, turbulent waters. She's gone, Marina whispered, hugging herself. She sacrificed herself for us. Roderick pulled her into his arms as she sobbed, holding the file that Valentina had died to protect. 3 months later, the digital file had been deciphered and its contents simultaneously sent to authorities in 12 countries. The capture operation was coordinated internationally, resulting in the arrest of 147 members of the organization, including the architect, who was found in a luxurious apartment in Dubai. Valentina's body was never recovered. Authorities presumed she had been carried away by the current, but Marina liked to think that somehow she had found peace in the waters, finally free from all the chains that bound her. The Helen Ashton Foundation expanded its operations, opening a new shelter specifically dedicated to women transitioning out of the correctional system. The first shelter was named Valentina House, in memory of the complex woman who chose redemption in her final moments. Marina was on stage at an international conference on women's rights, looking out at an audience of hundreds of people. She, who had spent her life being invisible, was now heard. Her story, the story of a housekeeper who saved lives and dismantled an international criminal organization, had touched hearts around the world. Every person has value, Marina said, her voice echoing through the auditorium. No matter how much money you have, what your social position is, or how many mistakes you've made in the past, every person deserves to be seen, deserves to be heard, deserves a chance to do differently. I learned this from my mother, who searched for me for decades even when the world said she should be ashamed of me. I learned this from my brother, who accepted me as family without hesitation. I learned this from my son, who teaches me every day about courage and hope. And I learned this from a childhood friend, who in the end chose sacrifice instead of survival, teaching me that it's never too late to make the right choice. The audience applauded, and Marina looked to the side of the stage where Roderick, Luke, and Detective Carla watched her with pride. Her family, not just by blood, but by choice, by shared struggle, by love that transcended all conventional definitions. After the conference, Marina returned to the mansion. The garden was in bloom, and she walked to a new bench they had installed under an old tree. A discreet plaque read, "To Valentina Miller, Viv, who found courage when it mattered most." Marina sat there, closing her eyes and listening to the wind in the leaves. And then, soft as a memory, she heard it. 3 taps. Perhaps it was branches tapping. Perhaps it was her imagination. But Marina chose to believe it was her friend, still watching over her from somewhere beyond this world. She tapped 3 times back on the wooden bench. "You're not alone. I'm with you." And there, surrounded by the love of her family and the memory of those who sacrificed everything to protect her, Marina finally understood the most important truth of all. She would never be invisible again because she had chosen to see herself. And in doing so, she had inspired countless others to do the same. The journey had been long, painful, and cost more than she ever imagined paying. But it had been worth it, because in the end, Marina was no longer just a survivor. She was a victor, and she would use every day she had left to ensure that other women could also claim their own victories. If Marina's journey touched your heart, if you were moved by the courage of a woman who refused to remain invisible, know that we have many other inspiring stories waiting for you. Stories of redemption, of family found, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of these narratives that celebrate the strength of the human spirit. Leave a like if this story inspired you and comment below what moment touched you the most. Your participation means everything to us and helps us continue bringing stories that matter. Until the next journey.